Hey everybody, welcome to the Health Coach Tip Tuesday show, where every week we are going to give you the tips, tools, and resources you need to confidently solve your clients' health issues and grow your career as a health coach or professional. If you are ready to dig in, drop the word stress in the comments, and we are going to send you our HPA sex hormone access guide and our HPA sex hormone access video. So drop the word stress below and we will send you those right to your inbox. I am Piper Gibson, your course counselor and co-host for today. And as many of you know, the man, the myth, the legend next to me, this is Reed Davis, founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. How are you, Reed?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Piper. So glad to be here with you.
Well, I'm glad to have you. Every week you are here to share your wisdom and knowledge with us about all things FDN. So this week we are going to be talking about stress physiology and hormone balancing. So what is your experience with stress, and how does stress affect our hormones?
Well, it generally has a deleterious, a negative effect. If you're talking about negative stress, it has a negative effect. There's also such a thing as good stress. I think we should never forget that. Butterflies, before they come out of the cocoon or chrysalis, go through a lot of stress trying to get out of it, But getting out of that cocoon, actually it squeezes their bodies really tight as they're squeezing around, they're squirming, trying to get out of the chrysalis or cocoon. And it squeezes the juices out into their wings and allows their wings to fulfill. So you never want to help a butterfly or moth come out of its chrysalis. You want to let it struggle, let it work. That's a good kind of stress. When we go and climb a mountain or something like that, it's generally considered a good kind of stress. Even on a mental emotional level, if you are challenged, that's probably a time in your life when you're going to be growing one way or another, get more mature, handle things you never faced before. Oh my God, it's stressful. Yeah, it could be actually a good form of stress. Now, the repetitive, long-term, chronic, the nagging, stuff, mental, emotional, financial problems and different things, or your kids are misbehaving, physical trauma, and certainly, I've had my share with that. You asked what's my experience. Mostly in my life, I've been a very happy person. I just kind of grew up happy and happy-go-lucky, and I kind of feel like if you ever watched that movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, I think it was a pretty good movie. The last words of the movie were something like along the lines of, tomorrow the sun will rise. So I've always had that kind of a outlook on life. But in terms of physical stress, I have damaged my body, man. It's a well-used one, with lots of sports and motorcycle and wrestling and things like that. I kind of tore myself up. Used to work construction. I still have sort of a weakish knee. That was 35, 40 years ago. And so anyway, so mental, emotional stress, physical trauma stress, and then the environment, like just chemicals from everywhere. I worked a long time ago in a fairly high chemical environment, a toxic environment. And I lost some liver cells, and some people say, yeah, and some brain cells too, So stress comes in all forms, and it can really damage your body. Every cell, tissue, organ, and system is affected. Now, when you tie together the hormones and stress, most people understand that stress causes a rise in hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, norepinephrine, epinephrine, these kind of things. So that can be deleterious. Too much cortisol will break your body down. You look at a runner, for instance, who runs 10 miles a day or something. They're all withered and old looking because, no offense, but they are just abusing their bodies, and so cortisol is high, and cortisol breaks down tissue. Cortisol is the catabolic hormone, and so if not countered with good strong anabolic hormones like DHEA is a big one. That, by the way, is the parent of your sex hormones. So if you're throwing off your cortisol and your DHEA balance, they need to be in balance. Then you're likely going to also start to affect your sex hormones. And you know what we could go over the symptoms and how people might feel about with that. What's your experience?
I have kind of similar experience. I tore myself up as an athlete, so definitely physical stress. I definitely had some mental and emotional stress as a kid. I think a lot of us do. But like you, I feel like I grew up like pretty happy and well adjusted, and the sun's going to rise and things are going to be cool and we're going to make it work. So, I really get that. But, I will tell you that when I started FDN, I started it for my son, but ran the tests on myself during the course. And it was really, really interesting, the results, because I didn't put the two together, that my hormones, my estrogen, my progesterone were really, really low. And that was leading to a lot of the things that were symptoms I was having, like being really tired and exhausted and having night sweats and all of these things. And so, I can relate to these people who have these stress hormone issues going on.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, that's a very common occurrence. Matter of fact, I think back to the very, very first FDN course. It was actually just a workshop, for a weekend. And there was one lady in there I'll never forget. She was just a little fireball. I mean, after the first couple hours, she wanted to jump up and help me teach. She's just a ball of fire. She wasn't overweight in any way. She seemed to have lots of energy. But then when she finally ran the labs, she almost broke down and cried. Like, she goes, "You know what? I knew it. I've got this great attitude, and I'm not overweight, and I have good energy and stuff. Most of it probably like nervous energy or something." But she had admitted to the test results we ran totally correlated with someone who would have mood disorders, fogginess, mental fogginess, hot flashes and things like that, low libido, sexual performance, things like that. Now, this is a woman, but I noticed in men they have all of that plus low semen levels. Both sexes share, hair loss, muscle loss, bone loss is huge. I mean, especially if you're thin. And then, of course, it's linked, hormone imbalances are linked, especially testosterone and these kinds of things, linked to atherosclerosis, early menopause or early andropause in men, and these kind of things. So, we know that symptoms aren't the problem, but you can start there. We talk about stress, hormones, and typical symptoms that come along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about how FDN works with those things. When someone comes to an FDN and says, "I have all of these symptoms, this is what's going on," how can we help people in this department?
Yeah, the first thing is a real good assessment of their life and quality of life and their complaints. And we've gone through that on these Tuesday Health Tips Tuesdays, how to onboard people and talk to them and see if you might be able to help them. So that's real important to do an interview first. But obviously, we're known for running labs. We run saliva, urine, blood, stool, whatever testing needs to be done to get the most bang for the buck and to identify healing opportunities. So we are not trying to diagnose low T, or something like that. "Oh, here's your stuff, that's going to raise it." That's called treating the paper. We're looking at test results in like a lot differently than that. We want to look for way upstream for the healing opportunities. And so we study the physiology, anatomy, the biochemistry, if you will, of hormone production. And so that gets really interesting and deep, and it can identify that it's not just, we don't want to just have people take supplements or, God forbid, medication to change the paper, the numbers on the paper, but it gives us insights how that person needs to live. It's called lifestyle medicine now. By the way, I saw last weekend a movie everyone should look up. I think you probably go to YouTube or something, find Code Blue. Code Blue. It's about a woman with multiple sclerosis who was a physician and got into what's considered functional or lifestyle medicine, which is what we've been doing from the lay practitioner side for 20 years. So it's not new to us, but it's really cool how it's becoming really, really popular.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I follow Dr. Terry Walls, who has MS, and all that she's done and all that she's doing, the science behind healing the body using techniques that we use in FDN, the diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation, all of those things come into play.
Yeah, we're good, acquaintances, Terry and I, and yeah,
Oh,
I
really?
know her personal story. Oh yeah, I see her at our Mindshare meetings 3-4 times a year, and certain conferences. So, uh, when you run these labs, there's two aspects to our work. It's assessment, including that verbal intake, getting to know a person thing, because you want to make sure you can help them. They have to be kind of sane and willing to do the work. So I can't help someone if they're not committed. But once you get those things out of the way, then we run labs, and then based on what we see, we can't use the word prescribe, but we educate people on what they can do. This idea of lifestyle medicine, and it is diet. Specifically, it's a corrective diet. It's rest and making sure this is a therapeutic time period where you're going to let your body heal. You have to have that. Exercise is another one. Goes without saying. You can't heal or improve if you aren't willing to move your body. And then the stress reduction is huge. It may be the biggest part. So we help people look for the hidden stressors. That could be parasites, bacteria, funguses, viruses. It could be things in you're putting on your skin or using to clean your house or hanging in the closet. There's just so many. It could be sitting in your living room. It could be part of what you do for a living too. Occupational stress is huge. I'm not just talking about you don't like your boss or some of your coworkers. I'm talking about hairdressers and factory workers and airline people who are exposed to incredible amounts of fire retardant and things like that get on your skin, they get in your anything gets on you or goes in you through breathing or eating or drinking and all these different things. So the DRESS is diet, rest, exercise. Stress reduction could possibly be the most critical area for some people. Some people, they know they're eating like crap, and you got to clean that up, folks. But once you get past, well, I'm eating well, I'm going to bed on time and sleeping for 6 hours a night. That's decent. I go to the gym or I walk around the block, whatever it is, 3-4 times a week, vigorously, if possible, if physically permitting. Well, then it becomes the other two. The two S's are stress reduction and supplements. And I don't just jump to supplements. I don't have my own supplement company. I know I could be making a lot more money if I did, but I just not in that business. So, but I know a few things about them. So backing up to the stress reduction, there are things going on that affect hormone production. If you take the gonads, which are the testes and the ovaries in women, these are the sex hormone producing organs for the most part. And they're under a lot of influence from the environment themselves. They are very sensitive, but they are also very sensitive to the signals they're getting from the hypothalamus pituitary. Now, we talked about this before when we talked about hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA. You also have the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid, and you have the hypothalamus pituitary gonad, if you will, testicular, ovarian, whichever one you have, whichever one you have the most of. I don't know if they're or not, but you get the point. So we look at all the influences, and then so that's kind of the anatomy of it. There's also other parts of the physiology, these hormones that are flowing, and then the actual production can be dependent upon things like enzymes and cofactors. So there's a lot of influence there. The action of enzymes is what happens that will make either, like if it's the testes, they're making sperm and testosterone, depending on whether the pituitary is releasing the right luteinizing hormone or follicle stimulating hormone. Now, in women, they have different organs. So the same signal from the pituitary, the luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, is going to produce, estrogen and progesterone. So, we have, how does the body know how to do that? Well, it's just pretty smart. It knows what to do. And if it has all the enzymes it needs to facilitate these metabolic progressions or processes, these metabolic pathways, then you might be in good shape. But if that's not there, if those substrates aren't there, the vitamins, minerals, and enzymes, then you're kind of, you may have trouble.
Right, absolutely. Like, you need everything there. You need the right formula for everything to function. So Julie Ann said that she has experienced stress and ulcerative colitis. It's been a big trigger for her. But she wants to know, with the functional testing, do we suggest certain products?
Well, sure. There's, just keep in mind, as I hold up my hand here, GRESS. So a lot of people automatically want to jump to the S, the supplements. And I want to tell you that they're often the last thing that I go to. First, I go to the diet and the rest and the exercise and the stress reduction, especially the stress reduction. Now, supplements can be very helpful. They can do one of three things generally. First of all, you're substituting for what's missing in food. Food quality sucks. The soils are all depleted, so we're not getting the minerals and things that maybe food had when I was a kid 100 years ago. So you want to substitute for what's missing in food. Then, no, seriously, not 100, but my grandfathers both grew their own food. They both used manure from the horses that were in the barn, 2 doors away. So we used natural things, and then they used rainwater and things. It rained a lot there. But anyway, so they just had, much better quality food when I was a little kid. And now we don't. So you substitute. Another thing supplements can do is stimulate, such as the immune system. You might want to stimulate, like before you get on a plane, zinc and echinacea, something. Try to boost it up. Believe it or not, you can actually turn down the immune system a bit if it's overactive and pissed off all the time. So supplements, nutraceuticals and these things, herbs have been used for thousands of years. So also, besides the substitution for what's missing in food, the stimulation of certain functions like immune system or digestive juices or something like that, you can also just general support. We know that the stress complex was always a real good B complex with some adaptogens. Adaptogens are good for whether you have high hormones or low hormones. They just seem to support the adrenals and other organs. So there are formulas, and then you could from there get real fancy, start doing the energetic stuff. We had a guest on our, in FDN we do this. We do this, 1 or 2 webinars for our members every week, and we just had someone on doing the essential oils. So there's lots of ways to skin that cat when you get into the supplement area, And by the way, you can breathe those and put them on your skin. You don't have to eat them or anything. So these are agents. Now, what you really have to do. Do you want me to talk about supplements for a minute, Piper? Because
Sure.
I think this is really important information.
Absolutely, go for it.
So look, you have a person there, and stress is a huge trigger in your life. People end up with dysfunction downstream that turns out to be irritable bowel or ulcerative colitis and things like that. There's products that you can use, but if you're not doing the diet, rest, exercise, and finding the stressor, finding the contributor to metabolic chaos, then that's like trying to empty a bathtub when the water's still running. But I want to go back to supplements for a minute and say that, they're agents that can be introduced to support, to stimulate, and to substitute for what's not in food. That's a naturopathic way. They can also be used allopathically, like to remove a headache or aches and pains or things like that. So you want to start separating what is relief care. Certainly, drugs are good for that. You got a headache, man, you can pop something from the drugstore over the counter, and it'll go away. You're not addressing the underlying cause or condition or contributing to metabolic chaos. But is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. I'm all for getting out of pain. But then, if it's a recurring thing, if you're having headaches 3 times a week, it's been going on for 10 years. That is not normal. If you have one once a year, once every couple months, it's probably not a big deal. But you probably breathe something or ate something or something. So anyway, this idea of agents being used to have an effect is okay for relief. It's also they can have a longer term effect. But currently, right now, I'm telling you, I'm taking an anti-inflammatory formula that I'm finding to give me some relief. I seriously injured my neck. I mean, really bad. My shoulder, both knees, my low back, and on and on. So it's motorcycle and wrestling mostly. One surfing accident I had, I just about broke my neck. So I find that agents can be introduced that are natural and they don't do any harm. They kind of work with your body. And it's okay, so I use that for relief. And then actually over time, some of these things have been known to help stimulate collagen growth, and you get some repair work done. So that's the corrective phase. That's something I don't think drugs do. So I'm going to sort of flip back and go, these agents that could be introduced into any case, any person with any problem, could be just symptom relief only. Managing the disease with no intention of changing anything. And so we try to use supplements for relief. Sometimes we call it self-treatment. I'm not going to treat anything, but I can educate a person what they might treat themselves with. And then further, you want the nurturing of the normal systems and functions. Nurture the cells, nurture the tissues, nurture the organs and systems so that they actually get repaired. That's the food and nutrition that you want to bring. That's why we start with food, and then we just sort of boost, where you're weak on the nutrients. And also critical, especially if you have ulcerative colitis, is are you actually breaking it down and absorbing these things? Because that's a critical functional area that you can improve. You can improve your digestion. There's a simple test. We do it on every client. We check for indican and protein breakdown. If you don't have the right combination of bacteria in your gut, you're not going to break down, especially protein, very well, or not as well as you should be. So protein is what? Amino acids. Amino acids do what? Well, they help make some of those enzymes. They help make the tissues. They help make everything, and especially neurotransmitters. So people with, for instance, this seems convoluted, but people with mood disorders, because they don't have enough serotonin and dopamine, which come from amino acids, may just have a digestive problem, believe it or not. That's why we always work on all these things at once.
Yeah. I love supplements. I think they can be very beneficial, but something that I tell a lot of my clients is that supplements can be like, if you're not doing the other things, if you're not doing the diet, the rest, the exercise, certainly the stress reduction, that the supplements are kind of like spraying a water hose at a 3-alarm fire. It's just like, it's not really going to do that much or have that much effect if they are not really doing all of the other things that they need to heal the body. And really, like you said, especially with the ulcerative colitis, if you're not having the good digestion and you've got that inflammation going on, you probably aren't absorbing what you need to absorb. So
yeah. So I noticed a couple of comments here when you were talking, and the one question that Julianne, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you like the topic, and we are kind of that next step for you if you're a health coach, and so you can run the labs and you can look into it. One of the questions was about can can the test results indicate exactly what minerals you need? There are tests that would tell you certain mineral excesses or deficiencies, like such as there's blood work, no, there's nutrient panels, and there's hair tissue mineral analysis, and there's ways. I don't put a lot of weight behind some of the interpretations I've heard. In other words, they're taking the test results too literally. There are two types of deficiencies, basically, and I learned this from a good friend of mine. His name is Bill Wolcott. Look up William Wolcott and get his book Metabolic Typing, or the Metabolic Typing Diet, and you'll learn that it isn't just that you're not getting enough of it in your diet. It's very, very often, probably more often than not, in an unhealthy person, that they're not actually able to absorb and utilize the nutrients. And that another thing is that you're out of balance. So most nutrients, like minerals, they need to be balanced with other minerals. Otherwise, you get out of balance. So if you run a test and it says quantitatively that you're low in something, and you start taking a bunch of it, you're just as likely to make it worse, because now you're going to overbalance the other ingredients, the other constituents, if you will. So just keep that in mind, that there are quantitative deficiencies. You're not getting enough in your diet. Certainly, look at iodine. There's what they call the goiter belt in America, where there's not enough iodine in the soil. And those people, if they don't substitute or supplement iodine, that's why they use iodized salt, because otherwise they get these, their thyroid swell up and stuff. That's a real quantitative deficiency. But I would say that most of America who's sick or, in need of, there's a lot of sick people who aren't sick enough to have a disease, but they're still kind of sick. They're not really optimum healthy. And it's a qualitative deficiency. The quality of their digestion and assimilation and other metabolic processes, including all these enzyme activities, just the metabolic process. That's why we use the term metabolic chaos so much, because it's our one diagnosis. It's not a medical diagnosis. It's our one major assessment. It's just metabolic chaos. And if you take an organized approach, you can sort it out.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Reed, for educating us all on stress physiology. Do you have one final tip that you want to share with the folks today?
Oh, my goodness. Chew your food.
Your mom was right. Chew your food.
Don't talk with your mouth. No, I mean, there's so many things that your mother taught you that were right. My mom was even, look, I'm 66. When I was 6, how long that goes, she was using fish oil. She was teaching us how to take care of our bodies, and cooking everything out of granddad's backyard, and things like that. So sometimes there's a lot of misuse of technology. People are going to depend so much on technology, and I would say that doesn't always come with the wisdom to use it. And so that's my final thought for today. We could extrapolate on that next time, maybe.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. If you have any more questions, make sure to drop them in the comments, and we will absolutely address them later during the replay. Check out the replay if you have missed the live episode. Drop the word stress in the comments below, and we are going to send you the HPA sex hormone access video and guide. So drop the word stress, all caps, in the comments below. And thank you, Reed, for joining me once again, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Follow up with Julianne. She's definitely someone we can help. I see some notes here, and thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate people, dropping it on us. That's what we do.
Fantastic. Bye, everybody. Thank you.